Hello friends, Dill Baloo here. I have a little pastel painting that I have pulled out to complete. This is part of my series of trying to recover some either unsuccessful works or unfinished works. And as I keep going through stacks of these kinds of things, I'm finding paintings, drawings, and what have you that seem to have some possibility. So I'm going to continue on with this. This began as a watercolor wash, and after I had put on some watercolor, then I actually have glued some tissue paper with Elmer's glue to these rocks because I want them to be more textured, and that's a very good idea for doing this sort of thing. So I encourage you to try it and see what happens, because at the very least you will have learned something. At the most, you might actually end up with something that looks really amazing. So it's all a learning curve no matter what. And if you have a creative bent to your personality, then you understand exactly what I mean. Now I'm going to be using a mixture of soft pastels and hard pastels. I also have some pastel pencils, and I have Grumbacher soft pastels in an introductory assortment, which is somewhat limited, but I have various others that I have picked up along the way. Now when I say picked up along the way, I'm always experimenting, so when things occur to me and I happen to be in a store that sells art supplies, especially if they happen to be on sale. So all things considered, that's what I'm using now, and I have always been of the opinion that the equipment that you work with can be very important, and the medium that you're working with is also important, but not as important as the artist's own eye for composition and for knowing when you've finished, when you have a fine art piece. So I'm jumping in with that sort of attitude today, and I can see a lot of areas that I want to change, a lot of things I want to complete, but if nothing else develops, as I said, I will have learned a little something. I will have done something creative this evening. So let's get started, and I'm going to first be working on the trees in the background. They need a variety of colors and tones, values, which aren't really there now. And then I'll move down and work on the rocks and the ground and the tree. But at any given time, I'm going to be working all over this painting. That in and of itself creates harmony in the work. And I will be spreading the colors that I work on up here. I'll be pulling them into other areas to keep the eye moving around the painting. Right now I have some good movement going with these roots and then the trees and the branches. So the eye is coming in and moving around insofar as the tree is concerned. These rocks are going to be my focal point, and I will be working toward that end as well. So join me. I'm going to be using my trusty little towel to keep my hands clean, and I'm also going to be using a paper towel over here to keep my pastel use a particular color, I'm going to be leaving it out of the boxes so that I can go back to it at some point. I've actually come to a point in my painting where my pastel dust is accumulating, and it's making it difficult to apply more pastels over the top. So what I'm going to have to do momentarily is just remove my painting from the cloth I'm working on, and I'll need to take it outside. And it's not good to blow the dust away because it puts it into the air, and then you begin to breathe it in, and that's not a healthy thing to do. So what I'll be doing is taking it outside, and because I don't want my dark pastels to fall on my lighter rocks and on the ground, I'm going to turn it upside down and just tap it a little bit, and then turn it on the side and tap it another time so that the dust won't create some issues with smearing and so forth. So do keep those things in mind. Some people wear rubber gloves because of getting the pastels in the skin, and it will over time absorb into the skin, which is, again, is not a healthy thing to do. So I will continue here, and I'll be back in a moment to talk about how I'm going to finish this up. Another point I want to make as I'm talking about these loose pastel, this loose pastel dust, is that you can actually buy a fixative, which is a spray, and you can spray on this that will control the dust to some extent, although I've never had the experience with it not being loose at all, but it's a good thing to do. Some people don't like it because it does change the color somewhat. And there, you can also use hairspray, a kind of light hairspray, and that is typically what I do if I do anything. But I'm very careful when I do it, and sometimes I do it while I'm working to keep the dust from accumulating and causing some problems. So that's just another little point. And be sure if you use a fixative or hairspray that you hold it at a distance, and by all means spray it outdoors. Well, I took a little break from this pastel drawing to go and look for my pastel pencils. Now, you probably don't have this problem, but I have so many art supplies that I can't keep them all in one place, but I always have a logical place for everything. Well, unfortunately, the logic I used when I put my pastel pencils around doesn't work any longer for the logic I had today. So I've been racking my brain and searching through my house, and I finally found them in the trunk of my car. So I'm going to do some touching up with the pastel pencils because they give a little edge here and there when an edge is needed. So today I'm going to try to finalize this painting, this drawing. I did shake some of the charcoal dust loose, and as I said, you need to do this preferably outside. Just tilt it over in whatever direction is necessary for your particular work, and just tap it a little bit on the back and the dust will fall off. Sometimes it does fall into areas you don't want it, but you just deal with it. And I'm going to be finishing up, and I'll speed this up again. I know sometimes when you're watching art videos, they can seem as boring as watching ice melt, so I don't want you to get bored. So I will be speeding this up. And I did, since last we talked, I did add some red in here, and I had to go back and touch a little red in the top, but not too much, but hopefully enough that the eye will continue on up to the top from this bottom section. So I will be completing this session, so we'll talk again later.